Hi, I'm McCann, and welcome to my CFO interview series. I'm honoured to have the opportunity to speak with some of Australia's most successful global CFOs on topics that are increasingly part of the boardroom agenda. Several of these CFOs are clients of Odgers Berndtson, maybe people we've helped place. All are people I view with the utmost respect. Please enjoy the conversations.
Phil has asked me to say a few words about ESG and climate risk. So where do we start? Huntley, IPCC, COP26 just around the corner, decarbonisation, TCFD, APRA's PPG on CPG 229 and SDGs for your AGMs. It's a confusing landscape at the best of times, whether that's identifying the risks and opportunities, climate disclosures in your reporting, progress to net zero, or climate governance. And so filtering the information and determining what's important for your organisation has never been more critical.
I'm actually from the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. My family has lived on the reef for about 100 years. And, I remember my grandfather telling me stories of what the reef looked like in his childhood and sort of explaining to me over the course of my youth how the reef had in many ways deteriorated. And, I've seen it myself, just in that we've owned properties on the reef and just watched the erosion happen. And my dad was a bit of a greenie many decades ago. So I suppose at a very early stage in my life, I was exposed to the fact that we live on a fragile planet. At HP, one of the things I prioritized as a CFO, for example, was actually really championing the concept around sustainability bonds. And interesting, Phil, recently we actually issued a couple of billion in bonds that were dedicated specifically to really embracing sustainability. So essentially, we've pegged sustainability goals to all of those offerings, whether it be, how we're going to reduce emissions at our data centers through to initiatives in real estate that will really drive those ESG goals. So I think it's really important as a CFO to not only sort of understand the sort of academic context around it, but also actually to have some practical implementations, and have finance as one of the leaders across the organization. And I'm really proud of the work we do at HP. I actually work on a laptop that's made of completely recycled plastic, which is another great example of the sort of product innovation that we're driving in this space.
It was particularly challenging or interesting for us in terms of the fact that we are global and our key stakeholders are quite different across our different regions. And what's important in Europe, which is fairly advanced in the whole environmental space, compared to maybe Japan and then Australia, where we tend to lag. So, to give you an example of that, what is very important in France is animal rights. Some of our basic initiatives we've been working on for a while is e-bikes. We've pretty much got a strategy to roll out 100% e-bikes in Europe to reduce our emissions. We're looking at solar, packaging. Interestingly, if we look at our carbon footprint, the whole logistics and food production is really where we have a significant footprint and our biggest opportunity to reduce our carbon footprint. Cows actually aren't that great for the environment in terms of their emissions, and because we use a lot of cheese, that's been a key focus for us. So we're even looking at partnering with startups in the commercial production of cell-based foods, and that's in its early phase. It's a big opportunities for us, and we are investing significantly.
ESG is certainly an emerging discussion and increasing in its focus both at board and management level. We have just approved our new sustainability strategy, which the board has signed off across the pillars of environment, social, and our workforce. We actually think on the social side, the core of what we do is to save lives and protect public health and protect communities. So we think we're fairly strong on that front. However, we are certainly aware of the increasing expectations of our stakeholders across a broader range of sustainability topics. When we think about our broader strategy, it is very much about long-term sustainability. And so we're continuing to evolve in how we think about what that means for the environment and also for our people.
It is something that we do talk about at both leadership and board level. I think the company has done, from a broader perspective, a lot of investment in ensuring, as part of the retail trade, that we help with sustainability of the retail sector. We do a lot of initiatives around supporting fashion designers and producers that have sustainability as part of what their focus is. So that's really important to us. As a company in its entirety, we're also looking at being carbon neutral and getting certification around that. And Ant and Nick, as our founders, are also doing that on a personal basis as well. So I think, we've got a lot we can bring to that, and we take that very seriously. We allowed our customers were able to donate to a number of different organisations over the last few months as well, around making sure that we were focused on sustainability, particularly from an ethical fashion retail trade. So there's a lot of things we can do, and it's certainly something that we talk about, and it's a definite focus.
As a global property and casualty insurance company, the impact of climate change on people and on communities goes to the very heart of what we do as a business. So, we see firsthand the destructive impact that natural disasters such as floods, wildfires, hurricanes have on our customers. And the reality of the planet today is that we're experiencing increased frequency and severity of these weather events. So just as an example, the net impact of catastrophe losses for us as a business have doubled over the last 4 years. On the insurance side, we're heavily invested in understanding and responding to climate science. So we're actively considering climate scenarios and impacts on our business. We're using this analysis to inform our decisions around pricing. And pricing in insurance is effectively a signal of risk. On the investment side of the house, we manage about 30 billion in assets under management, and we've incorporated ESG within our investment strategy. Since about 2014, our Global Premiums for Good initiative has enabled customers to direct a proportion of their premiums to impact investments. And this has really allowed us as a company to hold significant investments across many environmental and social areas, including sustainable energy, resource efficiency, financial inclusion. We've also recently joined the UN-convened Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance, which is a group of 47 asset owners with over 6.7 trillion in assets under management. And as part of this group, we're committed to transitioning our investment portfolio to net zero emissions by 2050. So lots of work going on in many different pockets, Phil, and we're really pleased, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, about the progress we're making.
We've been pioneers of the circular business model, and that was sort of a key part of the 2021 goals that we set. We've now sort of upped the level, and we're going for our objectives are about delivering on regenerative supply chains. So being a positive contributor to the environment we're in, not just doing less harm. It's actually about what can we contribute over and above. We've engaged and collaborated with over 200 customers. And the key focus is that have been eliminating waste from supply chains. The second thing we've done is transport collaboration, where we're working on eliminating empty transport miles. The customers can see that we're really adding value. And for us, it's been a really interesting development. So it started off as some idea that we had data that we could match that could help to solve some of these problems. And now it's evolved into a key part of our value proposition. And, we've had renewals of business where we've had major customers say to us, you really restricted our ability to give some of our business to a competitor because you've been so strong in value add and helping us to deliver on our own sustainability goals. I'm immensely proud. When you think about this is an Australian listed company. We've been recognized by Barron's as number 1 and number 2 globally for the last 2 years as the most sustainable company. We're driving change. We're making our customers' supply chains more sustainable. And obviously, we're delivering great outcomes within our own business as well.
ESG and sustainability has actually been a big part of our business for quite some time, even before it was sort of referred to as ESG. More directly in the finance field, in the last 12 months, we've raised nearly 3 billion in capital. And all of that has been sustainability linked in some fashion or another. So the last capital raise, for example, was 750 million high yield. in the US market, and that was raised under our blue transition bond framework, which is equivalent of a green bond, but it's a blue bond for the shipping industry. And this is a framework that we've established and we're using going forward. We've also done 500 million in the Nordic markets earlier this year in 2 tranches. Both of those as well were sustainability linked. The sustainability linking comes with, in some cases, some penalties or incentives. And other cases, it's predominantly around use of funds. So using them for sustainability linked purposes, which in our case is we're building a large fleet of new dual fuel vessels. So moving away from traditional bunker fuel to combined bunker fuel and LNG. And that's why it's the transition bond we're talking about, because it's not the end game. It's not 100% clean, but it's the first step we can make in the current market at this time because there's no other supply chains available.
There is an enormous focus on ESG right now simply because our shareholders demand it more and more. And reducing our carbon footprint is one of the challenges that we all face, whether we face it as individuals or as professionals at work. So, as you know, we produce an enormous amount of large enterprise solutions, servers, storage systems, networking equipment at HPE. And our financial services arm, HPE Financial Services, has a capability and asset management portion of that business that allows to recycle down to 96% of a overall server. So we reuse a lot of the components, and in doing so, we prevent the increasing amount of pollution through electronics disposals, which represents a pretty substantial threat to the environment. That side is also, quite frankly, a money-making opportunity. So not only do we serve the environment, but also we find an opportunity to give second life to certain assets, servers that in other circumstances would have been retired and broken into pieces and not recycled. So it's good for the environment and it's good for us. We're also looking, and that would be the next phase, at driving lower power consumptions in our machines. Some of the systems that we produce, like supercomputers, are extremely power hungry, and therefore we have to make sure that they're power efficient, that we use cooling systems as part of the solution to drive a lower degree of power consumption, and that it comes as part of our R&D and product development process. We inject within that everything that is needed to make sure that we drive a solution that also, from an environment standpoint, is environmentally friendly, but also lowers the cost of ownership for the customer ultimately. Lower power consumption is good for us, the environment, and our customers, who have a lower power bill too.